Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Let's just pick up on the issue of immigration. Jeremy Corbyn's office says the Labour government would not seek to control the numbers coming into the country. The Shadow Home Secretary Andy Burnham has been speaking about this to the conference in the last few minutes.
Let Labour stand for a fair Brexit, not a hard Brexit, that is true to Britain's past, protects our economy, but crucially, also provides the change that people voted for. Conference, this party must fully face up to this fact. Millions of lifelong Labour supporters voted to leave the EU, and let's be honest, they voted for change on immigration. We haven't yet even begun to show them that we understand why.
Let's get some reaction from the Labour MP Stephen Kinnock. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
Last night it was being briefed out from Mr Corbyn's office that the Labour leader was, quote, not concerned about numbers when it came to immigration. Are you happy with that?
No, I'm not. I don't think that's the right way to go. I think we need to be saying that if we want to build a society that reflects our values of compassion, of cohesive communities, of people working together in harmony, we've got to talk about controlling the inflow of labour from other countries. And I believe we should be talking about a sector-by-sector approach, defining the numbers we need in each of the areas, agriculture, home care services, the retail sector, setting a number that is appropriate. And when we reach that number, we say, that's it, that's all we need. We must make it clear to people that we respect their desire for having control over our borders, control over the way our labour market works, so that we can build the kind of society that we actually want to build.
Are you aware of any controls that Mr Corbyn would be in favour of on, for example, EU migration after Brexit?
I haven't studied the detail of what he's proposing. It's not something that's been discussed in the Parliamentary Labour Party so far, so I can't comment too much in detail, but certainly the message coming through seems to be about an open door with no controls at all. And I really hope that Jeremy will rethink that and reconsider it, because we've got to have a clear message around making immigration work for all of our people. The integration side of it, with the Migration Impact Fund he's talked about, absolutely we welcome that. But let's remember that many of the people who have deep concerns about immigration, there isn't actually much immigration in their communities. This is an issue of control, not an issue of integration.
Barry Gardiner, who I also spoke to about immigration, not just gas, he outlined he said there would be a range of quality controls on immigration, including immigration from the European Union.
Yes.
Do you know anything about that?
No, I mean, that's a little bit the risk, because that seems to conflict somewhat with the message coming from Jeremy and the speech, the briefing about the speech we've received. So there's a risk here that we look like we're making it up on the hoof. I really hope that we will be able to have a holistic and constructive debate within the PLP, and I'll be arguing firmly for saying, you know, the 23rd of June result was a political earthquake. We cannot pretend that there isn't a clear message there about the need for control, but we also can say this doesn't necessarily mean a hard Brexit. We're in the process of negotiating now. We as a Labour Party have to set some clear tests for the government on what we think a good Brexit looks like, marrying together the democratic imperative around control over free movement with the economic imperative of not wrecking our economy through the Brexit process. Now, Theresa May is supposed to be a tough and effective negotiator. Let's set those tests. Let's hold her feet to the fire.
Why do you say she's a tough and effective negotiator?
That's what I read in the papers.
Oh, I see. Oh, well, obviously then it must be true. As part of the negotiations, though, is it not likely that although Barry Gardiner was talking about, well, we'll have quality controls for all immigration, he was saying, tests and so on, is it not likely as part of the immigration that we will have to be more liberal towards EU migration if we want things from them than to immigration from the rest of the world?
I mean, I think what's required here is a proper bottom-up process where government and employers and trade unions have a conversation sector by sector about what is required. What are the skills that are required in the care sector? What's required for our NHS? What's required in the agricultural industry? And we set a number on that basis, and we can say on the doorstep, we've got a handle on this, we're actually on top of this, and we've set the number as this much. And when it gets to that much, we will close the door. And that actually is the way that it works in Australia. I was very surprised to see Theresa May come out against a points-based system. If you're going to have quality controls and criteria, whether we call it points-based or quality control, I don't really mind. But you've got to have those filters in place so that you can reassure the British people, so that we can then move the conversation on to what kind of public services do we need, what sort of investment do we need. Okay, if your class sizes are too full, you know, that we can't see all of that through the prism of immigration, but that's what's happening at the moment.
But if we impose work permits on EU members, they would undoubtedly impose work permits on British citizens going there. Is that really a constructive way forward, to have work permits?
I think that there's more of an appetite than there's ever been in countries like Germany, France, the Nordics, the Netherlands, to have a root and branch review of the way that free movement works across the EU. I think Theresa May has the opportunity now to use that leverage to go to Berlin, to go to Paris and say, look, let's work together on this. The Brexit referendum gives us an opportunity to think in a new way about how freedom movement works. And let's look, for a pan-European settlement. And if you can strike that bargain, you can then have a very different conversation about access to the single market of goods, services and capital.
A migration fund is being proposed. Gordon Brown had one. It only lasted for a couple of years. It was only tens of millions. It was a very small fund.
Yeah.
Would a much larger fund work, and how large would it have to be, and how long would it be before it really had an impact?
I think it's a very compelling proposal, and it's something we need. I would look to increase it substantially, potentially up to 500 million, but the way I would pay for it is through a levy on visas, and also if we do move into a work permit-based system, charging for those work permits, so you're not dipping into the taxpayer's pocket.
But
for this.
the levy in visas, or non-EU visas, was how Gordon Brown financed the one in 2008, and the revenue it produced, and it was quite a big levy, but it still produced peanuts.
Yeah, about 30-40 million, I think.
About the most,
so, yeah.
and they only spent 23 billion in 2008-9. So you would, and if you put a levy on European Union visas, what are they going to do?
Well, I mean, I think that's going to be up to the negotiations that Theresa May has got to take forward.
My point is, you cannot finance any meaningful migration fund simply through a levy on
It wouldn't
visas.
be the only way, but I think it's an obvious channel of revenue to
But
fund
the levy
it.
still exists. We just don't have the fund now.
Yeah, well, the fund got scrapped by the Tories, didn't it? But, you know, that's a false economy.
Right.
But the issue here is much more around control than it is around integration. The integration fund will work well in communities where there is a large number of immigrants, but in a place, you know, many places in, for example, our working class heartlands, it's not the numbers of the problem, it's the sense of a lack of control. Yeah.
Right. Andy Burnham says he doesn't want to be considered again as Shadow Home Secretary because he's off to run for Mayor of Manchester, so that's a vacancy. Fancy Shadow Home Secretary?
My phone hasn't rung yet, Andrew.
Well, he's only just announced it.
What I really hope is that Jeremy will move towards Parliamentary Labour Party elections for shadow cabinet positions. I think if that happens, it will make the bridge back to a cohesive and united party far easy to cross.
I can see it's not a no.
My phone hasn't rung yet.
No, you said that.
I am so honoured and privileged to be serving my constituents. The steel crisis is still taking up a huge amount of my time. There's plenty for me to be getting on with.
I thought you were going to say you're just honoured and privileged to be on the Daily Politics. And
Of course.
You have been honoured. Thank you.
I doff my cap.